It's Adam from Tested, and I am, as you can probably imagine, crazy psyched about the release, which will happen soon, or maybe have already happened by the time this video airs, of the Neil Armstrong biopic by Damien Chazelle called First Man, and my friend Ryan Nagata. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Adam.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
You worked on First Man. You worked on some of the suits and parts, and some of it is here, and I just want to dive. Excuse me, I drooled. I'm so excited I actually drooled just a little bit there. You worked on First Man, and you built all these different things for it. Let's talk about your collaboration with the filmmakers and what you did.
Right. I make a lot of spacesuit replicas, as you know.
Yeah,
I've been doing it for years. And like a year and a half ago, I got an email from a costumer who was working on the film, and they wanted a few of my pieces. They had seen my stuff online, and so I met with them, and it was great. I met the costume designer, Mary Zofries, and she was very impressed by the work that I do and wanted to figure out how they could incorporate it into the movie.
Well, and you told me that they were very dedicated to an extremely high level of fidelity.
Yeah, that's right. One of the first things Mary told me was that they really wanted to get everything right. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm sure every movie says that, but by the end, they really did.
And what we mean, like when we talk about getting everything right, like replicating spacesuits, you start to look at them and start to notice differences in that on every single Apollo mission, the suits had little and large differences between them because NASA was constantly refining the process.
Right.
So getting it right might also mean that for this flight, this feature wasn't there, but for the next flight it was, right? So it's about where in situ, in time, you're covering.
Right. Unless you've really poured over every picture of these flights, it's hard to tell if something was, used in training or something was used on a different flight. Mm-hmm. So that's why somebody like me is helpful, who's looked at all these things and could tell you that, like, yeah, on Apollo 11, they had a sewn-on checklist, for instance, because the EVA was so short that all the instructions could fit on one page. The later missions had a flip book. I guess I could just pull out
let's start.
The Apollo suits in that movie were made by a company that you and I both know, Global Effects.
Yeah, Chris Gilman's wonderful space, and he's been making spacesuits for movies forever.
For decades.
And he's actually been he's also made real spacesuits for NASA.
But there's a couple of things that Mary had me do, and one of them was the EVA gloves, because she really liked the way that I do the Chromel R.
And this is, Chromel is the extremely fine stainless steel mesh that the real gloves were made from, but it famously deteriorates fairly rapidly. I've handled some of these parts at NASA. And
yeah, it definitely fatigues, but
But you found this isn't actually the same stuff. No.
Well, the real stuff is supposedly $2,000 a yard back in 1969. I don't think anybody makes it anymore, at least the way that they made it back then.
Right.
So I use kind of a metallic polyester fabric, and I crinkle it in the oven, so it gets that sort of metal.
That's how you get the wrinkles, because the wrinkles are what makes it feel so genuine and true.
So I mean, there's a few close-up shots in the movies of Ryan like climbing down the ladder, and you see the gloves, and so they wanted those to look pretty authentic. Right. So I actually used a 3D scan of Neil Armstrong's real glove to verify all the measurements and everything, and the silicone that I made the fingertips out of is that's the same silicone.
Oh, it is
the real
exact stuff.
Yeah.
Now, so I have a pair of EVA gloves you made for my AL7.
Yeah.
Is there what did you learn from the scans of Neil Armstrong's gloves that you didn't know back then?
A couple of the dimensions were different. The part around here is wider. So I enlarged
in reality,
that.
It's wider than you thought it was.
The length was about correct on yours.
Yeah.
The fingertip, the little cups, the diameters are about the same, but I enlarged this part. So they're all in all a little bit bigger than the ones that I made for you. But this is an exact copy of the checklist that Neil had on his gauntlet.
Right. Their EVA was only like 45 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 2 hours.
2 hours? Yeah. I mean, so this is everything they had to do in that period of time to make sure that they'd gotten it all right.
And Buzz Aldrin had a different checklist, so I made Aldrin's gloves too, and it has a little a little bit different checklist. But
Did the actors appreciate that you did things that would never be seen on screen like that?
yeah, I should put Ryan Gosling's name in there, just
Oh,
sort of an Easter egg.
that's awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm noticing two different sets of gloves here. One that looks like it was used to clean out a chimney.
Yeah, yeah. So I made a total of 4 pairs.
Yeah.
And I guess eventually they had a designated dirty pair and a clean pair, and this is obviously the dirty one. Oh my God. And it's just covered in whatever that pigment they were using it for lunar dust.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. And did they do this weathering?
Yeah, they did.
Oh.
That. I think it probably happened naturally too.
So
I'm guessing.
you just got these back as like fully weathered by production.
I mean, I was hoping they would come back dirty. I know some people might make something and rent it to a production and hope that it comes back clean. But I'm really happy that it has all this grime and everything on it. It really looks like a real
It's just
moon-used
beautiful.
glove now.
What was the next part that you built for production?
Well, I also made something that I made for you was these
the Snoopy
caps.
Now, what is the difference between? I'm noticing that this one has these lines over here, and this one does not. What's going on here?
Well, this is the, Neil Armstrong's cap.
Okay.
So this is, I mean, not his real cap, but this is Ryan Gosling's cap.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they mentioned to me was that they noticed in all these historical pictures that Neil's cap had these brown stripes across the top, and then everyone else's didn't. And so they asked if I could, replicate that exactly as it was. And so I did this cap for Ryan Gosling, and I did several of the standard caps for the other actors who played Buzz Aldrin and Mike Collins. But one interesting thing about the Armstrong cap is that the standard Snoopy cap has this sweat pad that you could Velcro in and out.
Yeah.
But Neil Armstrong's cap didn't have that pad.
Neil Armstrong doesn't sweat?
Right. That's my joke, is that he's such a cool-headed guy that he didn't need the sweat pad.
That checks out.
But it doesn't even have the Velcro on it, so he couldn't even put that pad in there if he wanted. But
and I'm feeling this. This is real Teflon-coated fabric. Is this this correct?
Yeah, this is the same fabric that the real ones are made out of. It's a Teflon fabric. The thing is, if you look at these caps that are in museums today, they look a little bit more faded than this.
Well, actually, here's the one you made for me.
That's the one I made for you.
Yeah, this is much more what they look like today in a museum.
But I found out that this fabric actually fades over time.
Really?
So the way they look in museums don't look like the ones in 1969, because they were much darker.
Well, because most people who, I don't want to say aren't paying attention, but a lot of replicas of Snoopy caps make them black and white.
Yeah.
And now I can see, looking at this in a black and white photograph, you would just assume that it's black fabric.
Yeah, it does photograph very dark. But I went with a modern Teflon fabric that was still dark, as opposed. I do have a small amount of vintage stuff that I use on replicas sometimes that has that cross-hatched pattern on it.
Yeah.
But for the movie, I wanted to make them the way they looked back then, so I went with the darker stuff.
When we watch the movie and we see them in the Snoopy caps, those are yours. Those are these caps.
Yeah. So there was a few. I made a few of them, but these were used. They do have makeup and stuff all over.
That is awesome. Next
I don't actually know if this made it into the movie. I did make this. I got a random request for a lot of little things.
Yeah.
But this is a urine collection device.
A UCD.
Yeah. So I guess in the suiting up scene, they wanted to show every piece of equipment that was put on. So I made an exact replica. So the real thing has like a little nozzle here with something that looks like a condom.
Yeah,
attached
no,
to
it's I've worn one. Yeah, it is it's a long shell, and inside the shell is a tapered condom that each user cuts to fit themselves. But so this shell that you're wearing is this large tube sticking out of the front of your pants, and when you come out of the dressing room in this, and you're wearing the white under coveralls and this long tube here, and everyone's making eye contact. Everyone's staring each other in the eye.
I asked them if they wanted me to put that on there.
But they
They're like,
didn't.
no. They said, we can't show that. So they just wanted this outer thing that gets on here. But again, I don't know if it made it into the movie.
That is
but I
really-
did make those.
That's awesome. And you printed this on here.
Yeah, they were made by Whirlpool, so I put the accurate tag on there.
I love it. The spacesuit's made by Playtex. The urine
Yeah,
collection
yeah.
device made by Whirlpool.
Yeah.
Tell me about these boots.
Okay, so I didn't make these boots, but they do go with this
The X-15 suit.
that I did.
Okay.
So yeah, this
Shall
was,
we move to the X-15 suit?
yeah, I guess so. Let's
Okay.
we'll explain it together. So this was kind of the big ticket item I made for the movie.
Yeah.
Global made the Apollo and the Gemini suits that were used in the movie, but they didn't make an X-15 suit. And so I worked with Mary to make this suit for Ryan.
And I see that, I mean, I'm looking at an outer garment and an undergarment. Did you make the entire undergarment
Yeah,
as well?
everything in here was
Wow.
made by me.
Oh my gosh.
The real suit was two parts, so you had to don the suit,
Right.
the orange suit first, and then the silver part went over it that had this integrated harness. But I put a zipper in the back. There's two zippers, and the harness like separates there.
So you can put the whole
you
thing
could-
on at
yeah.
once.
Just so it was easy to put on. And
Yeah.
Ryan did sign it at the end.
Oh,
right?
that's awesome.
that was nice.
Did you get to see this being filmed at all?
Yeah, I probably saw every minute that this suit was filmed with. I wasn't going to be that involved in the movie originally. They just wanted that stuff. But once I made the X-15 suit, I was kind of the only person that knew how to operate it and put it on. So they
Right.
would fly me out to Atlanta just to stick this on Ryan and put all the stuff on and fix it if it broke on set.
Was he nice to work with?
Oh yeah, he was very, very friendly.
That's
and,
awesome.
Actually, the highlight though for me, it was very cool to meet Ryan Gosling, but the highlight was meeting Joe Engel, who was the last living X-15 pilot, and he was also the second space shuttle commander.
Wow.
He was the technical advisor for all the X-15 stuff.
Yeah.
And he just loved this suit. And,
Did he?
And, yeah, he told me he got onto set and he looked at the X-15 mock-ups they had done in the cockpit, and he was very interested, and he kept saying, well, where's the suit, the pressure suit? I think he had a real, I've met a lot of astronauts now, and some of them have a real nostalgic attachment to the suits that they wore.
Yeah.
So he saw this, and he was really, I think he was having kind of a moment. He tried on the gloves, and he said, this was definitely the sexiest suit that he ever wore.
Really?
He wore Apollo suits because he trained for Apollo.
Yeah.
He wore the shuttle suits. He said this was his favorite.
Really?
Yeah. So that was a highlight.
Now this is it was a really beautiful silver fabric you found for this outer shell.
Yeah, I didn't find it. I was given this fabric by the costume department.
Ah.
So it is like an
So they had done the
aluminized
research they needed to
nylon-
for the right reflectivity and et cetera.
Yeah. This is actually thinner than the real silver fabric on it. They had one made that was more accurate.
Yeah.
It was heavier, but Mary didn't like the texture of it, the way that it looked. I actually
Right.
learned a lot about texture from working with her because there were things that she likes all of these like kind of
The little wrinkles.
the little wrinkles, and she said like when you sew it and there's these little the ripples that develop, she said don't try and fix that. She said leave that all in there. That looks really good on camera.
that's
So
great.
when I make stuff now, I actually try to deliberately make it look a little more textured. But
So you were brought in for your expertise, but the film also gave you some new expertise.
oh yeah, also I learned a lot about weathering,
Yeah.
and mainly that I shouldn't care so much for the weather stuff because it looks much better when you just kind of throw it on there and you're not super meticulous about it.
Right.
So they weathered this suit, and just like sometimes you just see like a brush with a paint that was stuck on there, but yeah, they supplied me with that silver fabric.
And the helmet is a scratch build from you, yes?
Yeah, I scratch built this helmet, and you actually helped with this helmet because you had a Navy Mark IV shell.
Yes.
So this was a very quick job. I think I did this whole suit in about a month and a half, and so I didn't have a chance to mold a real X-15 helmet.
Right.
They're actually very rare. It's much easier to find reference for Apollo stuff than it is for these suits.
Really?
Because all the Apollo suits have been preserved and they're in
Right.
museums
Right.
and photographed. And there's only a couple of these on display anywhere. I have a friend who has one, and he let me examine it a little bit. But this was pretty much just scratch built from pictures.
Wow.
And I used a shell that you provided and then sculpted on all of these additional details.
But I love this this neoprene face gasket. This is a kind of system called an open system in which the oxygen is just pressurized
Right.
around your face. And I wore a system like this when I flew in the U-2 plane, and this looks exactly right. Like even close up to me, having put that system on, it looks like spot on.
Yeah, well, that's kind of an interesting story because I made this mask out of neoprene.
Yeah.
But I didn't have, Ryan Gosling there in my shop while I was making
Yeah.
it, and these things had to fit against the face really well.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, how can I make a mask that I know when I get on set will fit him without actually having him to test? And so I embedded armature wire in the neoprene mask so that when we got on set, I could just kind of mold it. And it fit really well.
And that actually makes it more comfortable for him too, because it's not like pressurized against his face.
Right.
It's just sitting there.
But that worked out well. I'm just lucky. Everything that I made happened to fit him really well.
I really like the gold lines on this visor. Having looked at a lot of pictures of these pieces and stuff, this for some reason makes it feel. This is the veracity that I was like, obsessed about and thinking, oh, that's just exactly what it should look like.
Yeah, that was part of some kind of defrosting system that they had on these masks. This is just like a Mylar graphic tape that I applied. So the real one looks a little bit different, like up close, but from a couple feet away, it looks pretty much how the real
It looks
helmet
fantastic.
looked.
And now you also did this suit here for the film.
I made a couple of Gemini suits. Well, I just rented them to them that they used for like stand-ins and lighting and that sort of thing. But they did actually use the harnesses I made in the movie.
Oh, okay. And this is like a life vest, right? You pull on this and it inflates.
Yeah. So the harness, these fittings, I think they're Koch fittings.
Koch fitting. Yep.
They plugged into the ejection seat of the Gemini craft, and I actually used real fittings.
They're not hard
harness.
to find these days.
No, they can be a little bit pricey, but you can still find them. But one of the issues that I warned the production about, and they didn't really listen at first, was that everything it's not like a science fiction movie where you can kind of make up how the suit buckles in. Like there was actual real hardware on the suits that was meant to interface with the spacecraft.
Right.
So I said, whoever's making the spacecraft, which was the art department, needs to put the correct thing in there.
That this fits into,
yeah.
right.
So, I mean, the costume people have millions of things to think about, so I don't think they were paying attention. But sure enough, I think it was like the day before they shot the Gemini stuff, I was going to Atlanta, and they asked me, do you have like the buckles that go in the spacecraft? And I said, no, I don't. So it was like a mad dash. I finally found a place, some antique dealer who deals in like aircraft parts that had these pieces, but they actually do work in the Gemini capsule that they created.
I mean, despite small things like that, when they call you originally to participate in this film, and you're thinking, being the obsessive maker I know you to be, we'll see how exacting they are. It must be really refreshing that they were so exacting and that they really appreciated the level of detail you brought to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. They were very thankful and appreciative at the end, because I also did a lot of consulting, just about random little bits.
Little details that you knew from poring over this information.
I mean, it's nice that all of that obsessive research could actually be used for something.
Well, it's not like there's some guy at NASA who's 98 and is still there from
Yeah.
the 50s. This institutional knowledge gets lost unless it gets picked up by people like you and me.
Yeah.
Just enjoying the exactitude.
Yeah.
So you have institutional knowledge that was really useful for the film.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of details that I found on the suits that I've talked to real engineers at ILC and stuff, and they don't even remember that these were things that were done. Just little details, and so sometimes I think I might be the only one in the world who remembers this, because a lot of those people have either forgotten about it or they've passed away.
Are you writing this stuff down?
I guess I should.
I tend to do this. I like, as I'm gathering information for a project, I tend to keep an open document of my research because, well, I'm older than you are, so things are starting to leave my brain now. So I have to keep a repository of that knowledge. But so you built the Gemini suit, but this Gemini suit wasn't used in the film.
No, this isn't used in the film. I just made this because I always wanted to make a Gemini suit.
Yeah.
And I did end up renting it to them, so they did do some, stand-in kind of stuff with it. But then I put, because you wanted a Gemini suit, I put your name on there.
We made a deal for this suit. Now, you also made gloves. These gloves are, like, they're really gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I really, like, I actually went and got a mannequin arm with articulating
that's
fingers.
a good idea.
Just to properly show off the gloves on this suit.
Yeah, gloves are tough because it's the pieces are so small that you have to work really carefully. I don't really like making gloves. In fact, when they wanted a Gemini suit just for stand-ins, I'm like, you don't need the gloves, right? And they're like, yeah, we want everything. So I was like, okay. I wanted to make gloves anyway, so it really pushed me to do that work, to put in the effort. And I'm glad I did now, because I have patterns for all of these things.
But I mean, I haven't made gloves, but it strikes me that the order of operations is really important. Like, once you've done one seam, you can't do another one, so you have to kind of choose literally which finger part goes in which part first.
Right. I often change little things on the gloves, even if there's a seam that I notice isn't on the real thing, but I know it'll make the construction like 10 times
bit easier. Yeah.
Then I'll add in a seam there.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So like these gussets that go around the fingers, they aren't. This is one continuous piece that goes all around the glove.
Right.
It's just easier to sew it that way.
Right.
The real thing kind of has individual pieces for each thing.
Right.
So yeah, I change stuff like that. I change stuff all the time on the suits I make if I don't think it'll be noticed.
Yeah. So now, do you have any future film projects planned? Has anyone else reached out to you? I'm curious how much of this work you want to do.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really that interested in doing movie work. I like making stuff for collectors or museums. And a few other productions have contacted me about doing spacesuit stuff, and I've turned them down just because I don't really want to do movie work. But for First Man, I made an exception because I knew that it was going to be about a real thing, about Apollo 11, something that I was very much interested in.
Deeply inculcated with, yeah.
And I know that they, so I made my first spacesuit when I was 14 years old, after I saw Apollo 13, because I saw those Apollo suits in the movie, and I was like, I got to have one of those. And so it kind of set me off on this whole life path of making these spacesuit replicas. So when this movie came along about Apollo 11, I knew that they don't make movies about the Apollo program very often, and that maybe some of the suit work that I do in this movie will be seen by some kid, and they'll think, wow, that looks really cool, I want to make one. And so I thought it was kind of a way of continuing on the tradition a little bit.
And a little bit of having a conversation with 14-year-old Ryan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it'd be funny if you could go back and tell him how well it turns out.
Yeah.
From humble beginnings to making the suit parts for Ryan Gosling. Ryan, as always, I find your work inspiring and even a little intimidating. Your exactitude is so rewarding to me to get up and close and see. I really appreciate you bringing this stuff to show us at Tested.
Well, thank you very much, Adam.
Thanks very much, man. And now we're going to geek out off camera and talk about the future spacesuit projects we're working on.